afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Joe Trentley from Harrisburg, PA. He's Mitch Bannon from Toronto, Ontario. And welcome back to this edition of the Sin Bin podcast. As always, on the Sports Fluent Network, go and check out all the great content on there. As you can see, Mitch is a little bit excited about something today. So we'll start with the leadoff, and we'll let him get right into his leadoff topic.
Thank you. I'll try to keep this under a minute. So last night, exciting night in the Blue Jays community. A 1,000 follower random account that I've followed for a couple of years who mostly tweets about Seahawks stuff, tweeted at 8:30 p.m. Eastern that the deal was done. Jays signed Springer. And everyone's like, this guy low-key kind of has some sources. He covers the Jays a little bit. And so everyone's like, what the hell's going on? And then it took almost 2 hours to get to the confirmation Jeff Passan tweet, but this rando guy scooped everyone and told me and the rest of the world that the Blue Jays were going to sign one of the best hitters in baseball, the top free agent hitter. Yeah, sorry, DJ LeMahieu. I'm going. George Springer is the top free agent hitter. He last season, or in the last 2 seasons, only 3 people created more runs than him: Nelson Cruz, Anthony Rendon, and Mike Trout. Since 2018, he's been the 9th best player in baseball by WAR. He is legit, and the Blue Jays struggle to sign big free agents, convince them to play for their team. I think paying this guy $150 million kind of helped.
Yeah, a lot of making the AL East better. The AL East just seems to keep getting better, with the exception of the departure of Blake Snell and company from Tampa Bay. But I will also stay within the division. And the New York Yankees recently signing Corey Kluber to a 1-year, $11 million deal, which is huge for the team. I thought it was a great move by Brian Cashman because the Yankees were missing yet another key starter. Tanaka has some contract negotiations going on. We don't know whether he's going to end up back in New York or whether he's going to go back to Japan. Regardless, phenomenal career in New York. Wish him all the best, no matter what the case is. But Kluber comes in, and now you have a rotation of Garrett Cole, Corey Kluber, and Luis Severino as your top 3, and then Domingo Germán and Jordan Montgomery likely the bottom 2. But that's not a bad rotation at all, considering of what the Yankees have had to go through in recent years as far as starting rotations. The hitting's been there. We already know that. The defense has been there. We already know that. And the bullpen has certainly been there. We already know that. The one Achilles heel that the New York Yankees have had over the last few years, starting pitching. And I think with the addition of Corey Kluber, he only pitched 2 games last year for the Rangers. So we don't know what we're going to get. But if he can return to old Cleveland Indians Corey Kluber, we can get back to a good starting rotation for the New York Yankees with the re-signing of DJ LeMahieu, the best contact hitter in baseball, Mitch. Sorry. I think we could have some high hopes for the Yankees this year. Regardless, should be interesting to see how the AL East plays out this year.
That's for sure.
Toronto, New York, and Tampa Bay, likely the 3 top bets to win the division. But we're going to start off the show now here from baseball. We're going to swing from baseball to the NFL and the divisional round of the playoffs over the weekend. Mitch and I had our predictions. Yet again, I believe Mitch did better than me on the predictions.
I believe I'm still undefeated. Still.
We'll start with the game at the Frozen Tundra. We both picked the Packers for that one. Packers took care of business at home against the Rams, 32-18. Wasn't the prettiest win for the Packers, but they still got the job done. Again, Jared Goff battling that thumb injury. The Rams defense, Aaron Donald was limited. I was watching the game and they were saying about, the Rams say they're not limiting Aaron Donald's minutes. They're not limiting this. Mitch, every time I looked over, he's on the sideline. He was not in the game on goal line situations when the Packers were in the red zone and inside the 5-yard line. Where's Aaron Donald? Arguably the best defensive player in football. Where's he at? And he was nowhere to be found. I think that was a big key in the success of the Packers here because they were running the football all over the place, whether it was A.J. Dillon, whether it was Jamal Williams, or whether it was Aaron Jones. That's really what set the tone for the Packers, and they took care of business at home against the Rams.
Yeah, last week against the Seahawks in that first half, kind of basically why the Rams won. It's because Aaron Donald just took over the game in the first half. Yeah, Russell Wilson played bad, but Donald in the defensive front got to Wilson on every single snap, and then the Rams got a lead and just held on. And Donald didn't get a single sack this weekend. He was basically a non-factor. It was a pretty ugly win, kind of how I thought it was going to happen. The Rams are just a good defense, but with Donald out or kind of out half playing, it wasn't good enough.
Yep. So the Packers take care of business of Sean McVay's team at home, holding on to that home field advantage in the NFC. And who are they going to welcome in, Mitch? None other than Tom Brady and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Brady and company go to the Big Easy and take care of Drew Brees in the Superdome. 30-20, final score. Clash of the Titans, Brady and Brees, easily two first ballot Hall of Famers. We expected a good fought, hard battle. I picked the Saints. I believe, did you pick the Saints or did you pick the Bucks?
I vividly remember saying, don't bet against Tom Brady. I don't remember if I then bet against Tom Brady.
I can't.
I think I probably took the Saints, but I don't know. We'll have to review the tape.
That's my fault for not writing it down here in the notes. But
I'll just say I picked the Bucks then. Prove me wrong.
Yeah. Regardless, Tom Brady and company go take care of business of the Saints. They were 0-2 against the Saints in the regular season, so that was the big storyline coming in. How are they going to take care of this team the third time around? And really what it was, Mitch, was the defense. Every play I looked up, Devin White is all over the field. He was if he didn't get the full tackle, he was getting a half tackle. He was always around the football, recovering the fumble. Like, he was all over the field. And the defense really shutting things down. Michael Thomas was barely a factor at all. The only spark of offense I really saw was that trick play where Jameis Winston threw the touchdown pass to Traquan Smith. So the Buccaneers really shutting down Drew Brees and the Saints, and injured Drew Brees and the Saints that we found out later. But could this be Drew Brees' last game? We'll get into that right after this. But what were your thoughts on the game there, Mitch?
Yeah, I think the most interesting part was today or yesterday you saw that the Brees injury note come out, and I don't know. It's like, oh yeah, he had like a shoulder injury we didn't know about. It's every single bone in Drew Brees' body was broken. Like, it makes you question. You have Taysom Hill and Jameis Winston on your roster. If what they're saying about Brees' injuries are true, and I think it came from his wife, so maybe she has some vested interest in kind of covering for his poor performance. I don't really know, but why would she lie about that? Why, like, Jameis Winston threw for the most yards in the league last year. Yeah, he throws 1,000 picks, but if you have two capable backup quarterbacks, why are you letting Drew Brees go out and play in that game? And the only reason I think they would do that, to touch on your previous point, is I think Drew Brees is going to retire. This is your last ride with him. I think what he's done for that franchise, you kind of owe him the opportunity to go out and lose this game, even with all his injuries.
And that's the exact point I was going to bring up there, Mitch, and bring that question up to you. The debate was Drew Brees, again, obviously a first ballot Hall of Famer, one of the greatest quarterbacks to ever play the game. And all he's done for the Saints, everything that he's given them, only one Super Bowl to show for it, but it was a memorable Super Bowl for that franchise and that city. They were always there. They're always lurking around the NFC title game. They're always, the Saints at the start of the season, you're like, oh, you can pencil them in as a playoff team. That's how the reigns of Drew Brees and Sean Payton have been over the years in New Orleans. But at what point, I understand giving him the right send-off. I am completely for that. But we're also talking about the NFL playoffs here. We're talking about a divisional round game where that you're in with a team that you beat twice in the regular season already. And you have three capable quarterbacks. Now, I know Taysom Hill was hurt, I believe. But Jameis Winston came in and threw that touchdown. Now, granted, again, it was a trick play. Why not throw Winston out there against his former team? See what he can do. Like, if you have a chance, if they were getting blown out by 30, okay, I get it. I completely understand. But if you're within 10 points in this game, why not stick with the healthy quarterback who can possibly go out there and win this game and move you on to Green Bay to go for the NFC title. Like again, I love Drew Brees just as much as the next fan. I'm not even a Saints fan, but I love Drew Brees. I think he's I'll say it again, first ballot Hall of Famer, arguably the greatest quarterback to ever live if you're looking at statistics. But if you're Sean Payton, your job as the New Orleans Saints head coach is to win football games. And by sticking Drew Brees out there, what did the report say, Mitch? 11 fractured ribs.
Every single bone in the upper half of his body, I think, was broken.
Yeah. Yeah, he had a torn
rotator
cuff.
Tear. Yeah. Rotator cuff.
Yeah. How can you throw that man out there? I'm again, nobody's questioning Drew Brees' toughness. It's just, at what point do you say, okay, what's better for the team? Yes, Drew Brees is one of the greatest quarterbacks to ever live, but he's also up there in age. His career is probably over. And you have a younger Jameis Winston who has NFL experience. Like you said, threw for the most yards last year. Throw him in there and see that you have a good offense. You have Alvin Kamara, you have Michael Thomas, you have Emmanuel Sanders, you have Jared Cook. You have Latavius Murray. You have good weapons. Throw him in there. I don't know. That's just my take. I know you want to send Drew Brees out on the right note, but not everybody can win a Super Bowl to go out on the right note. It's just, it doesn't happen. I don't know. Regardless,
I think their logic was probably, these are injuries that Brees has that are not going to get better by the end of the year, and you're not going to win a Super Bowl with Jameis Winston. So you just let Brees ride. And so I think they probably thought, we're probably not winning the Super Bowl. The fact that our quarterback room is pretty mangled right now. So just give Drew Brees the last ride.
So do you think, I'll end with this on this game, do you think he's played his final snap?
Yeah.
I'd agree with you there, especially the exchange on the field after the game with him and Tom Brady. And the look in Drew's eyes, the video on the sideline when he was, talking to Jameis, that picture right there tells the story that I think Drew knew that this was it and that his time's up. And it really sucks without fans. I think, the Superdome is one of the loudest places to play in the NFL. And I think if you have fans there for that playoff game, Drew gets a nice send-off, a standing ovation, something to go out with. I think Sean Payton would do something, special for him or something. But that's just not the way that I envision Drew Brees going out. But I believe also that was his final snap. So regardless, the Bucs, the Florida Sunshine team, go up to the frozen tundra. Again, Tom Brady's used to it, to face Aaron Rodgers and the Packers next weekend this weekend now for the NFC title game. But moving on over to the AFC side of things, we'll start with the Chiefs and the Browns. Very interesting game. A lot of people thought, oh, well, this game's not going to be close. The Browns got lucky in Pittsburgh, or, they played well for one game. They're not going to do it 2 games in a row. Pat Mahomes goes down with a concussion. And then all of a sudden things start to get interesting because the game is close at this point. It's not like the Chiefs were up by 30 and Pat Mahomes goes down with an injury. And who comes into the game but Chad Henne, and saves the day for the Chiefs as they beat the Browns 22-17, Mitch. That game, I was watching the end of it, and I saw the final play. How gutsy. First of all, the biggest storyline was obviously Pat Mahomes getting the concussion and Chad Henne coming in, but Andy Reid deciding to throw the ball on 4th down on basically the 50-yard line to end the game. Wow. Not many coaches, if any at all, have the guts to call that play.
No, yeah, that was a legendary play. I think it was funny because the play of the game up until that time was a couple snaps, or the drive earlier, I think. Chad Henne stepping back, trying to get it all on one play, thinking he's Patrick Mahomes, throwing 60 yards down the field, overthrowing his wide receiver by like 15 yards. I was talking with some people during the game, and one guy said it was like the MLB The Show one where the guy hits a home run and it's a home run because the outfielder's animation is they just turn around and look at the ball. Like, you knew that was out of his hand. that was hilarious. But then he kind of made up for it. I like that Reed gave him the opportunity to make up for that play.
Fun little side note here about Chad Henne. I actually got a picture with him before.
Really,
He was
legend.
in one of the small towns near my area. Believe it or not, I believe his wife, I think pap or grandfather is in one of the bands that plays at the local carnivals around my area. And the carnival in the town that was like 2 minutes from my house, like he was playing at that night, and who shows up but Chad Henne and the wife, and you could see him towering over every other single person there.
Mm-hmm.
And my stepdad, who's a Dolphins fan, at the time I believe Chad Henne was on the Dolphins, and he's like, "Oh my Lord, that's Chad Henne," and I'm like, "Yeah, right." And he's like, "No, serious." And so we went up, and I got a picture with him. Of all places, in a town, small rural Pennsylvania that probably has a total of 300 people. And there's Chad Henne at the carnival. And I got a picture with him, and my stepdad was like, "Oh, I'm really rooting for you guys. I hope you guys have a good year, hope to turn
I don't think they did.
Yeah, no, not that year, no. But yeah, that was a fun side note. So watching Chad Henne in this game, and I'm like, I have a picture with that guy. Like, I met him before, and now he's leading the Chiefs to the AFC title game as they take care of business. Pat Mahomes, he should be okay. He'll go through the league concussion protocol.
I saw something today that he's expected to at least attend practice, which means he's fine. You have to do, I think there's a 5-step protocol, and one of them is like light practice. And so like even if you're fine, you still have to start with the light practice. And so if he's already on that, I think that's step 4. So
well, and
he'll be fine.
You saw when he went down too. It didn't look good when he tried to get up. It looked like he didn't know where he was. He could barely stand up, but not a good sign. But if all signs point to him, he was tweeting after the game about anything is possible and all of the Chad Henne hashtags and tweets. But regardless, he should be good to go this weekend to face the Buffalo Bills. Bills Mafia making finally another appearance in the AFC Championship game. They took care of your Baltimore Ravens, Mitch, 17-3. I was looking at the game stats, and you wouldn't have thought the Ravens held the Bills to 220 total yards. That's unheard of when you think about Josh Allen, who throws for at least 300 a game, and 220 total yards. The Ravens outplayed the Bills in every statistical category as far as yards go. Total yards, they had more rushing yards, they had more passing yards, and they had more yards.
I don't mean to cut you off, but we got some breaking news, Joe. We got some breaking news. Ken Rosenthal, source confirms, free agent Michael Brantley in agreement with the Blue Jays on a 3-year contract.
Yeah, we saw that coming.
I need to change the wallpaper. We need to add Brantley over here now. That's 3 years. He's pretty old. I would have loved a 2-year deal. 3 years is long. This is your quick reactions to that. Good deal, though. The guy hasn't hit under 300 since 2017. He hasn't had an OPS under 800 since like 2013. He's maybe one of the most underrated hitters in the league. Sorry. Back, we can discuss how the Ravens.
That's fine. That's fine. We always appreciate breaking news here on the podcast. But yes, as I was stating, when I saw that, I was like, and the Ravens only put up 3 points, let alone like 3 points, and they had more rushing yards, more total yards, more yards per play. Basically every stat that you can think of, and they only put up. Now, granted, Justin Tucker, I knew when I was watching this game, I knew that the Bills were going to win the football game when Justin Tucker missed not only 1, but 2 field goals, both off of the upright. I was like, arguably the greatest kicker of all time, and he goes up there and misses twice. That is unheard of. I don't know if I've ever seen Justin Tucker miss twice in a game.
He's never missed twice in a game before.
So exactly. So when I saw that, I'm like, the Bills are going to win this game, because if Justin Tucker's not making field goals, it curses the Ravens. And, well, they only put up 3 points. And really I think the nail in the coffin was the pick 6 that Lamar threw. at the goal line. And originally, when the Bills picked that off, I'm like, well, he'll get tackled. It'll be an interception, but he'll get tackled like the 20-yard line or something. Then he just broke free and down the sideline and gone. And that's when I was like, okay, the Bills are heading to Kansas City in the AFC Championship game. What were your thoughts and reactions to that game?
Yeah, it kind of played out exactly how I hoped it would. I think the win definitely played into our favor until the field goal attempts, obviously. But when Lamar Jackson left the game with the injury, he had more passing yards than Josh Allen. Like if we have that as a reality, I think the Ravens would have been completely happy with that outcome. We played our game. We ran the ball. The first drive, I'm like, oh my God, the Ravens are going to win by a million. We ran like 8 straight runs for like 9 yards each. But then, yeah, the pick six was the game. We left, including that pick six, 2 field goals. We left 13 points on the board, and you can't do that in a playoff game. Uh, you look at the yards per game. I think we played well. We played our game, but yeah, we just left points on the board.
So Buffalo moves on to Kansas City. We're gonna have 2 great conference championship matchups here, Mitch. We'll preview those really quick. Really quick, but we can just preview them, however long we want to take. But Buffalo and Kansas City, I think everybody thought that this was going to be the AFC. I think it's fair to say everybody thought that these two, they're the top 2 seeds in the conference. I think everybody thought, okay, it's going to be Buffalo and Kansas City, especially with the way that Buffalo has been playing, because Kansas City can go out and win close football games, and it's just their thing. Like they're going to win because they're the Chiefs. But Buffalo, people thought, oh, they're going to have some hiccups on the way, depending on who they have to play in the playoffs. And they went through. I think they went through the tougher road to get there. I think when you play Indianapolis, who has a top 5 defense in the league, and Baltimore, who has a top tier defense and a top tier team in the league, well balanced team, those are 2 tough tasks. And I think they're better prepared coming into this game than Kansas City, in my opinion. I'm not saying they're the better team, but I think they are better prepared. They have recently played 2 tougher opponents. Kansas City had the bye. So, okay, people say, oh, well, that's more rest for them. Okay, obviously, that's true. But at playoff time, you want to be playing your best football at this time of year. You want to be hot, and you want to have – and I think playing that extra game, playing that wild card game keeps the Bills in sync. They didn't have a week off. So they played. It's more game planning. It's everybody's still on board. Everybody's focused. It's not, oh, well, we can sit back and relax and have light practices for the week and stuff like that. I think the Bills are better prepared coming into this game. However, I think this game is going to be one heck of a game. I think Josh Allen is a rising superstar in this league. We're seeing the 2 strongest arms in the league go at it, in Allen and Pat Mahomes. This one's going to be interesting, Mitch. I think it's going to come down to the defenses, in my opinion. I look at both offenses. Chiefs can score at any time. The Bills can score at any time. I'm gonna pick the Chiefs, just because I think the Chiefs will get one play that'll make the difference, and I think Andy Reid is a big difference maker. Nothing against Sean McDermott. I think he is a fantastic coach as well. But I think the Chiefs come out on top, but it's going to be close. It's going to be a very close game. I see it being a pretty high-scoring game with these 2 offenses, and I think the Chiefs at home get it done in a close one against Bills Mafia.
Yeah, I think we're pretty much in agreement on basically everything there. I think the interesting thing is I don't think either of these teams played their best football last week. The Wind, Josh Allen looked like rookie season Josh Allen. He was just overthrowing everyone by 15 yards. I was messaging some people. It's like, oh, we're getting the bad Josh Allen tonight. This is good. But I think the Wind did play a lot into that. And so it's interesting to see. I think whoever wins this game is going to be the team that elevates their game the most. Like, obviously, that's kind of a stupid thing to say because, like, obviously, whoever elevates their game the most is going to win. But I think this is close enough that if either of the teams plays like they did last week, they're probably going to lose the game because I don't think either of them played exceptionally well. And I think the Chiefs, it's interesting to see, do they have more? Because in the second half of the season, they kind of they won those close games. Yeah, they won them, but they weren't blowing teams out like we think they can on paper. So have they been holding on to something all season? Some good plays, a little more in the tank. Are they going to pull that out? And if they do, I think they should beat the Bills, because I think we know how good the Bills are. I don't think we quite know how good this year's Chiefs can be.
Yeah, I picked against the Bills last week. I took your Ravens, and I'm picking them against them this week. Nothing against Bills Mafia. I love Bills Mafia. I
It's
have
going to
no
be a
problem.
great game.
Yeah, I have no problem with the Bills. I'm just going by, their great story. Good for the city of Buffalo that they're back in this position with a chance to go to the Super Bowl, especially with the heartbreak in the '90s of losing 4 straight Super Bowls with Jim Kelly and company. But Bills Mafia headed to Kansas City should be a good one. But we're going to head over to the NFC side. Who will they face? Will it be – and you look at all 4 of these teams, and I think the main focus and the similarities around the quarterback position. The Bucs have Tom Brady. Packers have Aaron Rodgers. Chiefs have Pat Mahomes. Bills have Josh Allen. All tremendous quarterbacks.
They're probably 4 of the best 7 quarterbacks in the league.
Yeah. And you look at both sides, the AFC quarterbacks are extremely young. I believe 24 and 25 years old. And then you look at the NFC side, Tom Brady's 42 or 43,
40.
and Aaron Rodgers is 30.
They're old. Very old.
Yeah, mid to late 30s for Aaron Rodgers. So
definitely late 30s, I think.
Yeah. So the tail of the tape there, age-wise, but experience, you got Tom Brady and Aaron Rodgers, and Pat Mahomes and Josh Allen. 3 out of the 4 of these quarterbacks have all won a Super Bowl, with Josh Allen being the only exception. Frozen tundra. Brady's used to it. New England. Mitch, looking at this also, it's so funny to see. We're used to seeing Tom Brady this time of year in playoff football, but we're used to seeing him host the AFC Championship game in Foxborough. Now he is on the road in the NFC Championship game, in another frozen tundra at Lambeau Field, going up against Aaron Rodgers and company. So how do you think the clash of the Titans here yet again? Brady and Breeze, and then Brady and Rodgers, another future Hall of Famer. How do you see this one playing out?
I think this one's also going to be super fun. I think if either of the games are going to be a blowout, I think it's going to be this one, because I think the Packers kind of have the potential to blow this game wide open. I think there's a really well-coached team, but I don't see it being that. I think Aaron Jones is going to be a big factor in the game. The little battle between Devin White and Aaron Jones is going to be super interesting. But I think this one, if I have to pick this game, it's interesting. I am not the biggest Tom Brady fan in the world, but I kind of want them to win, because I think the storyline of Tom Brady leaving this Buccaneers to the Super Bowl at home during this weird year would just be so interesting. Be the first time a team has ever hosted a Super Bowl. And I think it would just be cool to see like a Mahomes or a Josh Allen versus Tom Brady battle of the AFC East. Like, that would be so much fun. But I think if I just look at these teams and be honest with myself, who I think is going to win, I think I can't pick against the Packers. They're the 1 seed for a reason. Like, they were the best team in the regular season. I just have to assume they're still the best team.
And Tom Brady and the Bucs doing this as a wild card team. They didn't even win their division. Well, as we mentioned earlier, lost to the Saints twice in the regular season, and then took care of business at the Superdome last week. But I think you hit pretty much every point. I'm still picking the Packers. I have said all along, and I will stick to it. Tom Brady has 6 Super Bowls. He's the winningest quarterback of all time. There's no debating that, no disputing that. But in my lifetime, strictly watching, like eye candy, like watching a quarterback play football, Aaron Rodgers is the greatest quarterback that I have ever watched. And I will stick to that. I'm not saying statistics-wise. I'm not saying Super Bowl-wise. I'm saying as far as watching the tape and watching the games, Aaron Rodgers does more things for me than Tom Brady does. Uh, Aaron Rodgers scrambles out of the play, rolls to the right, and throws a complete dart, 40 yards down the field. When you think a play's over, Aaron Rodgers is one of the best in the business at extending the play and making something out of nothing. He just the things that he can do amaze me. And I always say, Rodgers is one, and Pat Mahomes is, he's moving right on up there with Aaron Rodgers too with the things I've seen him do. But I've always stuck with Aaron Rodgers as far as the greatest quarterback I've seen, as far as pure talent, and I'm going to stick with that. And he's going up against the quarterback with the most accolades in league history. It's going to be a good one. And you can't. People say you can't bet against playoff Tom Brady, and even though he plays for the Bucs now, he's played in New England for how long, and he's used to the cold weather. This isn't going to faze him whatsoever. He's completely used to this, and it's not. People are like, oh well, the Bucs. The only thing I will say is the rest of the team won't be used to this. I know they're all NFL players, but if you're looking at the Buccaneers, they're playing in the NFC South. Half the games are in domes. Atlanta has a dome. New Orleans has a dome. And Carolina and Tampa Bay are outside, but they're still in North Carolina and Florida. So the rest of the team, I don't think that they're prepared for this, but it doesn't matter if they're not prepared for this because Tom Brady's going to be prepared and Tom Brady's going to have them prepared. I think it's going to be a good game. I'm not expecting a blowout, as you said. I think it's going to be a close one. The Bucs defense is too good. I think Aaron Rodgers and the Packers offense prevail over the Bucs defense, but I think it's a closer game than people think. I think it's within 10. I think it's something like a score of the Bucs Saints game, like 30-20. But I think Aaron Rodgers and the Packers prevail. You said Aaron Jones having a big factor. If they can run the football like they did last week against a great Rams defense and a great Rams rushing defense, which the Bucs also have, I think that will be the key for the Packers. And I think they get one or two key turnovers on Brady and company. And I think the Packers move on to the Super Bowl to face the Chiefs. Wouldn't that be something, Aaron Rodgers and Pat Mahomes in the Super Bowl? But regardless, it should be a great slate of conference championship games this weekend. The NFC title game comes first, and then the AFC title game later in the day. So it should be good. We'll see.
Weather in Green Bay.
Weather in Green. Yeah, that's
15 degrees and snowy.
Yep, well. Again, who does that favor? Because both I mean,
it's true.
Brady, again, I don't know. I'll say it again. Brady's so used to this, but regardless, we'll see who makes it to the Super Bowl in Tampa Bay. Will it be Tampa Bay Buccaneers, or will it be the Green Bay Packers, and will it be the Kansas City Chiefs or the Buffalo Bills? Guess we'll find out here. But we're going to move on to the ice now, to the NHL. We're in week 2 of the season here, Mitch. Getting some early reactions here. I have, if we look at the standings, well, first I'll start off with some of the league leaders, and we'll talk about if you're surprised by any of that. Again, most of this is through about 4 games, so bear with us here. We know it's only 4 games.
Very early reactions, but this is also like 10% of the season too. So
yeah, there's 7 players tied at the league lead in points. They have Jack Hughes listed on the top of the NHL website, but Taylor Hall, John Tavares, all in there in company, amongst others, Jack Eichel. But Semyon Varlamov, really a story with the Islanders here. 2 games, 2 shutouts, leads the league in GAA. And Jeff Petrie, most points by a defenseman. Really no surprise that he's been playing very good hockey over the last season or two.
He might be the most underrated defenseman in the league.
Mm-hmm. Yep, he has 5 points so far this year, and the goal leaders are Travis Konechny and Bobby Ryan. I bet you wouldn't be thinking that through 4 games. I think we could all assume it'd be Connor McDavid or Alex Ovechkin, but Travis Konechny been playing some very good hockey for the Philadelphia Flyers, and Bobby Ryan as well. 4 goals tied there with Konechny. So those are your league leaders. And we'll talk about team stuff then too. But Mitch, any surprises there between the stats I just brought up?
There's some surprising names. I think Konechny is also. I said Petrie is one of the most underrated defensemen in the league. Konechny might be one of the most underrated forwards in the league. And the Flyers kind of have like 7 Travis Konechnys, and they just roll them out on their forward line, and they're really good. But I think the most surprising thing to me is the Taylor Hall Jack Eichel connection is clearly working. They're both up there in the scoring, but the Sabres still stink. So you can bring in all you want on the forward end. You can pay Taylor Hall. What did they pay him? $8 million to as a mercenary for 1 year, but they still haven't solved the back end. They still haven't solved the goaltending, and it's hard to outscore teams in the NHL.
One of my really good friends is a diehard Sabres fan, and I've been talking to him about this, and he's still complaining. He's like, "Why is Carter Hutton still in net?" He said he's arguably the worst goalie in the league. He goes, "Throw Allmark in there. He's not worse than Carter Hutton. Just throw him in there and see if the Sabres can turn. You know, it's only 4 games, but we all know if it's the typical path the Buffalo Sabres go down, it's not going to be a pretty end of the season. Throw him in there while you still have time." You said this team shows signs of life. You know, they put 6 goals up against the Flyers the other night. They chased Carter Hart out of net. Uh, so this team has young. Rasmus Dahlin was the first overall pick a few seasons ago. This team has young talent and hope. It's just, can they mesh together? And reading articles about Jack Eichel, he signed that super long deal. A few seasons back, I believe it was an 8 or 9 year deal. And I was like, signing an 8 or 9 year deal to stay in Buffalo, that's risky. But
commitment.
but now there's rumor. Well, is this Jack Eichel's last season in Buffalo? Will he have an opt out? Will this be enough if the Sabres don't get to the playoffs? Especially with the division realignment, the East is clearly the top division as on this side of I would say country, but countries. The East is clearly better than the Central is. So the Sabres, well, I guess they're in the East. I don't know why I was thinking they're in the Central, but very tough division to play in. So it's going to be tough for them to get to the playoffs. But when is enough for Jack Eichel is the big question there. But we'll go to each division here. I'll read through the standings and, I'll see if you have any surprises here. Looking at the West, we're starting in the West. No surprise here, Mitch. 1 and 2, we both picked them as our top 2 teams in the West. Vegas and Colorado. Again, you picked Vegas to win. I picked Colorado to win. They are 1 and 2 in the West, followed by St. Louis and then Minnesota, Arizona, my sleeper team out of the West, Anaheim, San Jose, and the Kings, the 3 California teams at the bottom.
They're so bad. They're just so bad. They're not even trying to pretend to be good.
Nope. I believe they were the bottom 3 teams Detroit and
Ottawa, and then
the 3 California teams. Yep. Any surprises here out of the West so far this early in the season?
No, that honestly, if you told me that's how that division ends at the end of the season, I'd be like, "Yup, sounds about right." Like maybe I think that battle between Minnesota and Phoenix or Arizona, now, is going to be interesting. But I think besides that, this division's not going to be very interesting at all.
I if there's one surprise I'd bring up, it'd be Minnesota. I've always been like, okay, good for the Wild. It's Minnesota's the state of hockey. It's the Wild should produce. The fans in Minnesota love their hockey. The Wild they don't play flashy hockey. They don't score goals. They really don't. When's the last great offensive threat that you've heard of that plays for the Minnesota Wild? Zach Parise, when they got him from the Devils
6 years ago, yeah.
Yeah, and he's aging that. Who's been the guy for the Wild to go out and score goals? You look at a Wild team, you're like, oh, they won't score more than 2 goals tonight. They had great goaltending when Devin Dubnyk was there. But the Wild, and again, I know it's only through 3 to 4 games, but I expected them to be down, I guess flipped 1 spot with Arizona. But if they can keep this up, they'll be a surprise for me. Again, top 3, not really a surprise for us. Vegas, Colorado, and St. Louis. I think we all figured that.
I think, sorry, just to touch on the Wild there, I think you make a good point, and I've always thought they're arguably the most boring team in hockey. But then they got
Mhm.
the kid from Russia, Kaprizov, to come over, and they changed kind of from Dubnyk to Cam Talbot, who had an underrated year last year. And I think you're right that they haven't had that flashy goal scorer in a long time. And I think a lot of people in the industry think Kaprizov can be that guy. And I think he scored his first goal in the NHL, was an OT winner. And if he's going to score like 30 goals this year, maybe he's the next face of the franchise.
We'll see. Too early to tell, but regardless, that's your Western Division. Now we'll move on to the East, um, the most stacked division, in my opinion. Philadelphia at 1, Washington at 2, New Jersey at 3, Islanders at 4, Penguins at 5, Bruins at 6, Rangers at 7, and Sabres at 8. I think there's a few ways you could go with this one, Mitch, out of the East. But what are you thinking out of those standings?
Yeah, I think it's kind of, we talked in our NHL preview about how the Bruins might kind of start slow because they have some injuries and they're kind of trying to work in some new faces and figure out some new defensive pairings, and they're starting slow for sure. I think we all kind of know that team is still one of the best teams in hockey, so they're gonna figure it out. But this year is interesting because you have way less time to figure it out than usual. You can't be bad for 20 games this year, or else your season's over.
Hmm. I agree with you. I think just getting Pastrnak back for the Bruins will give them such a lift when he comes back. The big surprise for me is the Devils in third place. I had the Devils finishing dead last in this division. And again, I know I have to reiterate this is 3 to 4 games into the season, and we may sound like we're overreacting, but we're just going off of, so far. But seeing the Devils in that 3 spot is just like eye-opening. Like, wow, there's no way that this team has any business being in that top 3 spot in the best division in hockey this year. But Philadelphia at 1's really not a surprise for me. I had them in our preview finishing second behind the Bruins, but I could easily see them finishing first. And the Islanders sitting at 4, I had them, I think, at 3 behind Philadelphia and Boston. And then, and Washington's at 2 right now. The Capitals playing very good hockey, meshing together a lot of that, a lot of those new players. New goaltending faces, Zdeno Chara, Justin Schultz. They have a lot of new pieces to fit in. The Capitals meshing well. But I guess the Sabres at 8 really isn't, eye-opening or a surprise. But the East, we'll see how it shakes out. A lot of hockey to be played yet. And that's the division I'm going to be keeping an eye on, because you could very well make a case that the Stanley Cup winner will come out of the East. But we'll move on to Mitch's division, Canada, the North Division. Toronto Maple Leafs at 1. I know Mitch is happy about that. Montreal at 2, Calgary at 3, Winnipeg at 4, Ottawa at 5, Edmonton at 6, and Vancouver at 7. I have a few surprises here, Mitch, but I'll let you go first, since it is your country.
Yeah, I've watched more games from this division, obviously, than any other division, just because they're on for me. I feel like the only games I've watched the entire games of besides that have been Capitals Penguins game. I feel like every single time I turn on my TV, there's a Capitals Penguins game on. But yeah, this division is going to be so close. 1 through 7, like all of those teams have shown us stuff this year that's good, and have also showed big flaws, which is fun, but it also means there's going to be a lot of shuffling. The Senators played the Leafs really hard. Stützle scored a sick one-timer goal that, I think he's going to be great this year. But I think my biggest surprise is probably Vancouver in last. I think they're a good team. They're deep. They doubled down on goaltending, but they've just gotten run over in a couple games they played. I think they beat the Oilers. That must be their only win if they're in last. But Brock Besser looked sick in the couple games I watched of him. But then after that, they've kind of been flat.
Vancouver is definitely my surprise, too. I had them as my sleeper team out of this North Division when we did our preview. Toronto at 1 is really not a surprise. But, Mitch, I always look and I see the Edmonton Oilers, and I'm like, you have Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl on that team. That's like it's comparable to a Sidney Crosby, Evgeny Malkin 1-2 punch. And you still find yourself in the bottom of the division, not the league. Well, not just the league, but the division. I know goaltending has been the issue there, but at what point do you say we have to fix this? Like I know it sounds awful to say, but you are wasting each year that goes by. You are wasting Connor McDavid's prime years. He's not going to get any younger. Now he still is very young and still has a lot of hockey to play, but. And also, at what point does he say, I want to get out of Edmonton because I'm never going to win anything here? This is what, year 5 or 6 for him? At some point, a player can only take so much, no matter how much they love the city or the franchise or the fans. And if a great player like Connor McDavid wants to go have a chance to win a Stanley Cup, it's not going to happen in Edmonton, clearly. If this trend keeps going, if this train keeps going on the tracks that it's been going on over the last few seasons that he's been there, it's not going to go anywhere. So I think Vancouver and Edmonton is the bottom two. Kind of really surprised me. Ottawa there at 5. I thought they were the clear-cut worst team in this division. But they're hanging in there at 5. The other top 4, you could say, well, all right, they're not bad. Winnipeg's not a bad team. Calgary is not a bad team. Montreal has shown what they can, blossom into, especially with the last playoff run that they had over the last year. So they're sitting at 2, and Toronto at 1 is really no surprise. I think they're the best team in this division. But Vancouver and Edmonton down there below Ottawa really surprises me. I think both teams will pick it up, and I think they'll move up the standings as time goes on, but we'll see. So we'll move on to the last division here, the Central Division. No surprise, Tampa Bay at 1. I think everybody,
no Kucherov, no problem.
Exactly. I was going to literally just say, a real quick note. If Tampa Bay just continues to do this without Nikita Kucherov, their best player, at what point do we say, okay, this team is a super team? Like it's unfair. We know they have the best goalie in the world, arguably the best goalie in the world. However, people want to debate it, but
I think he probably is.
But Tampa Bay at 1, the Florida Panthers at 2. Nice little sleeper team there, Joel Quenneville's squad. And the Nashville Predators at 3, Carolina at 4, the Detroit Red Wings at 5, Mitch. Columbus at 6, Chicago at 7, and, well, the Dallas Stars, who haven't played a game yet due to COVID, at 8. You look at this division here, Detroit, Columbus, and Chicago have all played 4 games. And they are the bottom 3 with the exception of Dallas, who hasn't played a game. And Tampa Bay and Florida are the top 2 teams, and they've only played 2 games.
That's crazy.
That's Columbus, Chicago, and Detroit. Detroit has 4 points, which Tampa Bay and Florida also do. But Columbus and Chicago has 1 point in 4 games, which I think we kind of expected.
They're so bad. Like, I think they're underratedly the worst team in the league.
And Columbus has 3 points in 4 games. So I'll let you touch on what you want to touch on here, but there's a decent amount to talk about here in this division.
Yeah, I think I wanted to talk about the Blackhawks just being terrible. They're going to struggle to score goals, and their goaltending is, I think, the worst in the league. And there's some bad goaltending teams in the league. But I think kind of the interesting thing is how they're going to deal with this Dallas situation. Like, they're pushing games back, but then there's going to come a point where there's not enough time left for them to finish their season. And they're 10% of the season's gone, and they're all sitting in hotel rooms, I presume, waiting to get negative COVID tests. And what happens if it's almost from a purely logistics standpoint, they probably hope everyone got it because they don't have to come back 2 weeks, someone else get it, shut the team down again. You want a crowd resiliency or something like that for this team. And obviously you hope everyone is okay. I haven't heard of anyone being not okay, anyone having to go to the hospital or anything. But if they have to wait 4 or 5 more games before they start, Gary Bettman in the NHL is going to have to start thinking of logistics plans. Like, are you letting teams in the playoffs based off point percentage?
I think that's a very interesting point too, Mitch, especially as a league commissioner. The NHL, the fan base in the NHL, while it might be the smallest of the core 4 American sports, I think the fan base of the NHL is the most diehard and hungry fan base, with baseball being right there as well. We all know the NFL is the most popular, but as far as like, if you go without a season, while the group of fans might be smaller, a lot smaller in the NHL, for example, than the NFL, you go without an NHL season, those fans, I think, are going to miss it, the most. And that's a lot saying with football. Football fans, obviously, everybody loves football. How can you not go without football? But seeing, the previous lockouts and what, the NHL fans go through, playoff hockey with, the slogan is there's nothing like playoff hockey for a reason. The Stanley Cup is the hardest trophy to win in all of sports for a reason. And seeing the playoffs last year in 2 empty arenas in Edmonton and Toronto was just devastating. You can hear everything you can hear the skates. You can hear the calls for the puck. You can hear, guys on the bench yelling, whatever they're yelling. And I think, as a commissioner, at what point do you say with the Stars, okay, like, I know this isn't your fault, but I can only do so much. I can only push back so much for you. We have to if we want, I can't cater to one team, to mess up all of the others. And I think it's really because Dallas is a good hockey team. They are a playoff team out of this division. There's no question about it.
Very likely, yeah.
And I at what point, like you said, does this keep going on? You would, this again, I don't want this taken out of context, but like you said, the team almost hopes that everybody gets a positive result, so that way they can recover faster. Hopefully all recover faster, and that way that they can get back to playing hockey faster. Because if you just have, 3 of them tested positive here, then a week later 7 more test positive, then it just delays the process. But that'll be really interesting to keep an eye on, the Dallas Stars, and see what happens in that Central Division, because Tampa Bay and Florida are right up there. I think Nashville's going to fall off. I had them as my what's the word? I had them as my bust out of this division this year. Carolina will move up. I had them as my sleeper with Florida. But I think Dallas slides in there in that top 4. But we'll see what happens. A lot of time, a lot of hockey to be played. Those are our predictions here early on throughout the first 3 to 4 games of the season. It'll be an interesting ride here with COVID still around and everything throughout the league. And moving on to the hard court now, from the NHL, we have the NBA news. We're very late to this, but James Harden getting traded from Houston to Brooklyn. Now, this is a huge, huge, huge deal in the NBA spectrum, because not only does this shake up things for the West and the East, but basically what I just said, the entire NBA. Mitch, looking at this, now he goes to Brooklyn to join Kyrie Irving and Kevin Durant. Kevin Durant coming back after missing 18 months and playing at an MVP level. I believe he's averaging, in his 11 games, he's averaging like 30 points a game. Playing at an MVP level. If you have Kyrie, Kevin Durant, and James Harden on that super team, the argument is, who's going to beat them? They come to the East, or Harden comes to the East now, and Brooklyn was already going to be a playoff team. There's no debate about that. But they're the clear-cut favorite now for the East. I think they're the clear-cut favorite for the title. It's meshing them together that's going to take some work. But who in the East is going to beat Brooklyn? Boston? Philadelphia, Miami, Atlanta, Milwaukee. Who?
Yeah, I think this isn't like a new take, but I think the only thing that's going to beat Brooklyn is themselves. They have a lot of personalities in that room that's well documented, but if they can just keep it to basketball and keep playing the basketball we know they can, and let Kyrie do his thing, let Kevin Durant do his thing, let James Harden do his thing. It's funny. This team kind of reminds me a lot of the Jordan doc. Not to saying any of these guys are Michael Jordan, but there was that episode of the Jordan doc about how Dennis Rodman just left the team for a couple of days, went to Vegas, came back, and they just kept playing basketball. And this feels a lot like, as long as these guys come back and keep playing basketball and are all healthy and in their zone come playoff time, they're not going to lose to anybody.
And there's always the debate now. Well, Harden left the West because LeBron went to the West. You look at the West. Who's going to challenge the Lakers? There's really Utah, Portland. You can't say Houston anymore.
I hope we get
Denver,
Lakers semifinal. We were promised last year.
The Clippers, the Clippers are probably your best hope. Denver took it to them, or Denver really battled against the Lakers last year, but ended up falling short. I mean, realistically, you look at that, the Clippers are kind of the only, hope for non-Lakers fans in the West. I think then once you get to the finals and it's Brooklyn and LA, I think Brooklyn wins. Okay, so you have LeBron guard KD. You have who's gonna guard James Harden?
Harden on Kyrie is like the biggest mismatch of all time. Yeah. You don't want that.
Who's gonna guard James Harden and Kyrie?
They would have had Danny Green last year, who wouldn't have been the worst guard on Harden, but yeah, Kentavious Caldwell-Pope.
It'd be different if the other superstar for the Lakers was a guard.
Yeah,
but he's a center, power forward, center, however you want to list him. So he's not going to guard James Harden or Kyrie Irving, a point guard and shooting guard. It's just not going to happen. But so you throw LeBron on KD. I still think KD eats. I still think KD gets his 25 to 30 in the playoffs on LeBron. He's not the best defender. He gets lazy at times. And Kevin Durant is arguably the greatest scorer that we've ever seen.
Oh, yeah.
Arguably, because he's about 7 foot and can shoot from,
and dribble like he's 6'2".
Yes. At this, it just shakes up the entire NBA, because coming into this season, everybody said, "Oh, well, the Lakers are just going to repeat. The Lakers are going to repeat. There's nobody stopping LeBron and AD. It's not going to happen." And then you said, "Okay, well, Kyrie and Kevin Durant are coming back healthy now for Brooklyn, so it'll be a different shakeup." Because you look at the Lakers playing the Heat last year in the finals. Heat were a great storyline, great team, great team game. Almost like a San Antonio Spurs like pop team. You look, everybody shares the ball, everybody, ball movement and working in offense. Eric Spoelstra, a great coach, but you knew what the outcome was going to be. You knew the Heat weren't going to the depleted Heat team weren't going to beat. Bam Adebayo played one game in that finals, 2 games in that finals. You knew they weren't going to. Nobody could guard AD. You knew they weren't going to beat the Lakers. But I think now you have a big 3 in Kyrie, James Harden, and Kevin Durant, 3 of the best scorers in the league. I think, again, I agree with you 100%. The only way the Nets don't win the title is if the Brooklyn Nets beat the Brooklyn Nets. We'll see what happens with that. If you want to get any final thoughts on that and how you think it'll shake out, again, very early along in the season, but
I think their one weakness is going to be with the bigs. DeAndre Jordan has proven he's still competent, but he cannot play more than like 25 minutes a game. He gets gassed. And I think that's why Jared Allen was so key for that team. And he's gone now. He's on Cleveland. They got traded like 16 times last week. So I think they have like a glaring weakness in that their bigs aren't that good. But like this team, they have them all under contract for next year too, and then Spencer Dinwiddie is going to come back healthy. They still have Joe Harris. Like this, if you can tell me now who's going to win this championship and next championship, it's got to be the Nets both times.
I can agree with you there. But we're going to wrap things up here. Any last word or final thoughts from you, Mitch? I think I know which direction you're going to head in here, but.
So next week we're going to get George Springer right here, Michael Brantley right here, and then Brad Hand is going to go right here. That's my prediction for next week.
I'm going to end things with the Pittsburgh Penguins finally getting their first win and 2 wins of the season, sweeping the Capitals. Big moves there after, getting swept by the Flyers in the first series. It took a shootout and overtime to beat the Capitals, so the Capitals still got 2 points out of the series, but big win, especially last night in overtime from Captain Clutch himself, still proving why he's the best player in the world. And the Penguins now have 2 wins on the season. So a lot of hockey to be played, a lot of basketball to be played, and we're coming up on the end of football season here. We're all going to be sad about that. But conference championship games this week, there will be a lot to talk about next week, previewing the Super Bowl and getting more into the NHL and NBA season. We'll have all that for you. Maybe throw some college basketball in there as well. As always, thank you for tuning in to the Sin Bin podcast. Go check it out on the Sports Fluent Network. A lot of great content and creators on there. I'm Joe Trentley from Harrisburg, PA. He's Mitch Bannon from Toronto, Ontario. And we will see you guys next week on the Sin Bin.